Bam! Welcome to the Paradox Podcast.
The Great Paradox Podcast.
It's the Great Paradox Podcast. I've got a question for you that was posed to me by a priest. The question is, are you a Catholic or are you a disciple?
That is the million-dollar question of the day.
And that is the topic we're going to get into today. But I got to tell you, Larry, something big is happening amongst the St. Mary's men, the men of the parish that I attend. There is a spirit of fellowship that is starting to arise. There are relationships that are beginning to kindle. There's vision for different men who have different strengths and different desires to release their ministry, to give what they have to the rest of the body. And I'm going to tell you how I gauge this. I am an analytics person. I've been doing YouTube stuff for years in business. I've got to look at analytics. Larry, I had 32 text messages the other day in about a 20-minute span.
Okay.
It was the premiere of the Great Paradox Podcast. The guys didn't know it was about to premiere. It was this last Friday night. And one of those text messages was sent out, the kind that I don't like, where you've got like 10 guys on one text message. It's not that I don't like them. It's that if I'm at the movie theater and 10 guys are texting and you get, 10, 15 text messages, your light keeps turning on. You have to shut your phone off.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It was one of those text messages, but I liked this one because the amount of fellowship taking place inside the text message. So I'm engaged in the conversation. I've got Mike talking about tell Father Vidal this. We've got Jack talking to Bob. We've got Bob talking to Mark. We had so much incredible fellowship going on. Jose talking about going and fixing sound so that we can feed Father Martin's daily masses into Facebook with greater sound like they have at St. Francis of Assisi. But I had to look away from the conversation for a minute because I had to get our Paradox Podcast premiere going.
Right.
So I had my head down for about 20 minutes and I looked back up 32 text messages.
And the thing I really, really like about what I'm hearing here is I've prayed for a long time for the right vehicle to use my talents. And I've got when I was in college, I was a radio broadcaster, so the podcast is the closest thing. But I think all these guys are trying to tap into a way to contribute. And that's an exciting thing because the sky's the limit with that.
And talk about a great opportunity, when you have a situation where one person is a hand, one person is an arm, one person is a leg. The men of St. Mary's are varied in their talents.
No question.
I mean, one thing that struck me, I first started going to St. Mary's, I guess, about 3 or 4 years ago now. And I was traveling for several years. Mackenzie and I were doing traveling business. We were traveling the nation a lot. So we didn't get to settle in and have a home parish. And although we were living in a city that was about 30 minutes away from St. Mary's, people would ask me, why are you going to St. Mary's? And I would say, because the fellowship amongst the men is it's wonderful. It's something that I have not yet experienced. And one of the things I loved is that you have so many different strengths amongst Adam and Kevin and Gary and Mark and now Larry, and there's so many different, Bob. I mean, you have guys with different strengths. And Father Vidal did such a great job. He's no longer the pastor there. He's been moved on to St. Francis of Assisi, of bringing those men together and having them cooperate to put on the men's retreat, cooperate to build flame keepers, cooperate to help the church with the parish with anything that it needed on the grounds and amongst the people. But I sense that there's an even greater revival happening amongst us right now.
Well, we're at the tip of the iceberg. I would agree with you. So when you first saw what was going on there, what was it born out of attending the retreat, or what was it?
I started off the first time I attended Mass and found out that there was a men's group. It was actually Adam was announcing that we were having a Flame Keepers meeting at his house. And I showed up to his house. His wife had cooked some Vietnamese food. And there was just a bunch of men sitting around enjoying each other. And that was my first introduction. Father Vidal came. And, a lot of times priests don't spend that much time in parishioners' houses. I mean, I know they have to go to bless the home. There's reasons they go, but Father came and just was hanging out and was talking to us and sharing with us. And we got to ask any questions that we wanted to ask. And, Father Vidal was a really relational priest.
Oh, no doubt about it. And a teacher and, very good at all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first introduction, was a Flame Keepers meeting at Adam's house.
And if there is anybody listening out there that doesn't know what that is, I mean, the Flame Keepers was born from the retreat, right? I mean, it was a continuation of the retreat. So it was post-retreat fellowship that you stepped into.
Exactly. So Father Vidal is big on retreats because it allows you to have an experience, an encounter with Jesus. Father Vidal's big on, look, we can't just go to church. We need to have these times where we get out of our normal environments, and a retreat is a perfect environment for people to have an encounter for longer than an hour. If you go to Mass, you might be at Mass for half an hour. If you go to daily Mass, you might be there for 45 minutes to an hour on a Sunday. And so Father Vidal loved having these retreats. And the retreat that the men began to put on 10 years ago is up in Idaho. So there's this piece of land, and it's basically a 2.5-day retreat. And you go camping, and you go to Mass every day. You pray the rosary every day. You are speaking about spiritual stuff all day long. You have confession. You have times of fellowship and training. But it's really in a very intense 48 hours of spiritual encounter with Jesus. We do the procession of the Blessed Mother up to the grotto before we have Mass. And boy, I love taking communion as the sun is rising.
Oh, that's awesome.
Plus, we have Eucharistic adoration all throughout the night. So it's really 24/7 Catholicism.
Right.
For 48 hours.
And the limitation is that the 48 hours comes to an end and everybody goes back to their homes. And the Flame Keepers are there to reconnect and keep that flame from that retreat going as the year continues on. So
yeah, and it's
you stepped into a pretty powerful group. It was just a great experience for you.
And then from the retreat, they said we want to not just get full of the Holy Spirit while we're at the retreat. We want to keep our flames lit in between the annual retreat, because that's the goal, is to abide in the vine, stay full of the Holy Spirit, continue being filled with the Holy Spirit. And so we developed Flame Keepers, which is a monthly meeting, and we would come together at a person's house and we'd have a meal, and Father Vidal would show up and do a training or a teaching. And it's just a great time of getting to know each other. And of course, in between the monthly meetings, you had, I told people, Brother Gary he has all sorts of service projects because he's tied in with the Sisters of Charity, and they're always in need of men who have a hammer and a nail to come and help them with some stuff. And so you have opportunities to fellowship. And of course, you have a men's club meeting once a month. And so the men who'd be at Flame Keepers, some of them would also come to the men's club. And so there was just the facilitation of a lot of relationship. And I believe that those relationships are going to another level right now. I believe that COVID-19 has made our faith so important. I mean, it was already important, we get that, but there's something about this COVID-19 that's causing even the people around us who aren't believers to start wanting to know God. And I think I think as a result of that, God is preparing us for something. I think he's stirring some relationship in us right now. I had 32 text messages in 20 minutes.
Well, it's a testament to people's need and desire to get involved, right? I've being a Catholic, it's very easy to go to church on Sunday and not be involved. Because I'll tell you, one of the problems with that is you volunteer for one thing and you get sucked in and you're the end-all be-all for everything they need. So a lot of people don't even want to step their toes in the water for fear that they're going to be called on, and their entire week is going to be used up by people needing stuff from church, or you know what I'm saying, getting involved in more programs. For that reason, that was one of the reasons. For 9 years, I've been a parishioner at St. Mary's for a long time, and I was in the coming in and out of church. The men were asking me, Larry, this is the year, right? This is the year. I avoided the retreat for 9 years. So I finally took the leap and went this past August, and there's no concern with being roped into everything, anything and everything. But anyways, being Catholic, let's talk about that, Catholic versus disciple, because just going to church every Sunday, not getting involved, and going through the motions of weekly mass, is that discipleship?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I think about being Catholic, sometimes I think in jokes. You ever get so tired that everything's just funny to you?
Right.
And I've thought about how funny it would be to do a little parody YouTube video
okay.
of the ultimate Catholic. And the ultimate Catholic shows up to Mass wearing every miraculous medal you could possibly wear.
Okay.
You've got a brown scapular, a green scapular, an orange scapular. You've got a rosary. You've got a crucifix, a very large crucifix. And I'm just imagining walking in with every bit of Catholic garb, dipping your finger in the holy water, making the sign of the cross. It is kind of a joke, a good humor joke, that you could be really good at being a Catholic and not even know Jesus, but just a little tiny bit. You can know how to do the sign of the cross when you walk in. You can know how to genuflect at the right time. You can know how to do the triple cross when they're about to read the gospel according to Matthew. And if you're Catholic, let's just be honest. One thing that Catholics have over every other Christian denomination is we are organized in how we take communion.
Oh, yeah. You've seen it. You've been to some other churches where it's chaos, right?
Oh, it's chaos. They're handing out grape juice. They don't know when to eat, when to drink, who's leading the thing. I mean, as a Catholic, we are the most organized communion takers. And of course, it's because we esteem the Eucharist in a different way.
Yeah, there's a huge reason behind that.
But the question is, are you able to go and do all the genuflecting, all the signing, say all the liturgy, but are you saying it to a God who's far off, who you have no relationship with? Or do you know Jesus?